Let's settle now for the news, starting with this story. And government has indicated that out of the number of district hospitals that were designated under Agenda 111, 92 sites have been identified and are available for work, but 41 of those sites have challenges that are related to the terrain. The Health Ministry, however, noted that 63 sites have been cleared for construction to begin. The project is to create 111 health facilities in Ghana. Project coordinator for Agenda 111, Kwabena Nyako, says though government is yet to disburse 10% as mobilization to some contractors to commence work, 67 sites will begin working by the end of March 2022.
As I speak, out of the 101 district hospitals that were designated, 92 sites have been identified and are available for work. 41 of those had some challenges, and those are mainly to do with the terrain. So we've had to look at some alternative arrangements for that. 51 of those are fine. Processes have started. So as we speak, 63 of those sites have been cleared and are ready. There's a whole list. I believe that the Ministry of Information will furnish you with all the additional details. The contractors, the plan is to pay them some mobilization. So 10% of their contract sums will be paid as advance mobilization. 138 of those have been paid. They are mobilizing to sites. Some have actually started work on sites. I have a list of at least 10 sites that work has actually started, and quite a bit of work is going on. I'll touch on the psychiatric hospitals because I think the gentleman raised the issue. There are 2 psychiatric hospitals as part of the program in the Middle Belt and the Northern Belt. All the technical details have been completed, the drawings. We had to do soil tests for all the 92 sites that have been identified. We had to do geotechnical investigation, soil test, and also the topography. We had to send surveyors to all these sites to go and survey the sites and establish the topography and so on.
From health, let's talk security. And Deputy Defense Minister Kofi Amankwa-Manu says the security agencies are on the alert to deal with any act that threatens Ghana's peace and stability. He says threats of a coup d'etat should not be encouraged in a democracy when there are disagreements over government's policies and decisions. He says such pronouncements tend to adversely affect the external image of the country. There is more in the following report.
Yemfa ya hoɔden enkɔkasa yekoyeku yɛde ahoɔden ebesua sanu adwuma amia ya adwuma pa ama ɔma Ghana akɔnanim.
The Deputy Defense Minister described as worrying threats of a coup d'etat by convener of the Fix the Country movement, Oliver Barker-Vormawor, over the controversial E-levy debate. Mr. Amankwa-Manu says coup mongering has devastating effects on growing economies like Ghana. He, however, says there should be no cause for worry.
Every Ghanaian living in this country called Ghana to go about their normal duties without any fear, because I have so much confidence in our men in uniform. They are prepared to protect this country from those I will call the destroyers, the doomsayers, because for them, probably, I don't know what really they will seek to benefit from coup. But I believe, in all fairness, that majority of Ghanaians do not want that to happen.
Mr. Amankwa-Manu is also unhappy with a statement by General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Esiedun Ketia.
We want to develop this country, and we can develop this country not through coups. No, we can develop this country by sharing ideas. We can always disagree to agree. We don't have to fight. That is why I thought it was in a bad taste when the General Secretary of the NDC said that if they want to make sure that whatever standing orders or the laws we have in Parliament work, and they have to slap for those laws to work, they will slap. For crying out aloud, Parliament is not a boxing arena, and nobody wants to go there and box. We go to Parliament to debate. We go to Parliament to share ideas. It's a place where we always agree or disagree to agree so that we can push the country forward.
Thank you very much.
The lawmaker spoke to a section of the media after launching a youth livelihood empowerment project in his Achumang Kwanguma constituency in the Ashanti region. Some 120 sewing machines were presented to some youth currently undergoing the CAM-led fashion model. The project has been instituted to equip over 1,000 youth with employable skills for a sustainable livelihood.
Well, now, head pastor of the Royal House Chapel, Reverend Sam Crunchy Ankra, has again reiterated the demand for accountability from government. He believes persons elected into government must let the people in on their responsibilities. Reverend Crunchy Ankra said this when two persons who had been charged with alleged publication of false news visited his church to seek prayers and intervention. Executive Director of the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, ASEPA, Mensah Thompson, was arrested in connection with a Facebook publication where he alleged that family members of President Akufo-Addo traveled on the presidential jet to the United Kingdom for shopping during the Christmas holidays. Bobi Ansa of Accra FM had also been charged with offensive conduct. The two were at the church for prayers where the Apostle General expressed hope that the freedom of the press would be enhanced as a result of this case.
The freedom and the liberty of the press will move to another level as a result of this case. We, the people of Ghana, we have resolved that not only shall we go to queue and to vote for our leaders anymore and go to sleep. We won't do that again. When we vote for them, we shall call them to accountability. They will have to account for the power invested in them. We will call upon them to account for the promises that they make, for which we elect them. So we are telling them that this is not going to be an assignment of journalists and the courts only, but every citizen of this nation, including those of us who are worshiping at Royal House Chapel. As a matter of fact, every Christian, it is your responsibility to make sure that those we entrust power into their care, they are properly accountable.
Well, government has cut a sort for the construction of the first secondary school in the Yoyo Naswani area of the Northeast region. The 12-unit classroom block will be a girls' model senior high school. Speaking at a short gathering to introduce the project contractors, MP for the area, Oscar Liwal, told the residents that the project was in fulfillment of their long-standing dream to have a secondary school within the district. Correspondent Ilyasu Tanko has more in this report.
Naswani district in the Northeast region, since its creation from the Nambumpurgu Nakpanduri district 4 years ago, is yet to witness any drastic change on the ground, with poor and limited access to essential public services and deteriorating living standards still very much the order of the day. Notably, among the countless development challenges faced, the district has no senior high school to provide access to secondary education, which was one of the high points for the separation of the district. As parents are unable to afford to send their children out of the district for secondary education, children here are often compelled to take their destiny into their own hands after completing the junior high school, a situation said to be contributing significantly to the chronic underdevelopment and increasing social problems such as teenage pregnancy, child forced marriage, kayayi, among others. However, after many years of complaint to the central authorities, the situation is about to change.
When we talk of girls' education, Yoyo Naswani district has been left far behind. And our chief thought it wise to request for girls' model senior high school from the vice president through our honorable member of parliament, through the district chief executive, thank God this morning we are here with contractors, the contracts in Nanswan here.
Mr. Bintian Conlan is the district chief executive. Before the chief and people of Nanswane, the second largest community in the area, the DC has just announced the construction of a 12-unit classroom block to be used to establish a girls' model senior high school. There was an outpouring of excitement as the residents thanked the government and spoke of the benefits of getting a senior high school at their doorstep.
Many of them travel to Kumasi, Accra, even Tamale to do kayaye. And this is just because of lack of education. Some SSs are very far from here, so they find it difficult to get to that point for their education. So I think just to hope the girls in this community to be well educated.
I believe teenage pregnancy and forced marriage will reduce significantly when a senior high school is established. Our girls here mostly end up in these situations due to the absence of higher learning institutions, but also poverty.
The way our girls was going for KU and then them, all of us was not happy, and because the government of Nana Akufo-Addo and the vice have done, we don't know what to talk to them. It's only that we want them to be there and there so that everything will be coming like the way they have come today. So I'm very, very happy.
We will feel proud and relieved when the school is built. Our mothers will be proud as well because their children will now have access to secondary education under their supervision. Funded by the Ghana Gas Company, the project is expected to be ready for use by October. At a sword-cutting gathering, the Member of Parliament who facilitated the project said it will promote girl-child empowerment as well as help in the development process of the district.
When you look at the girl-child in this district in particular, you can count the number of females who have been able to climb the educational ladder. They are not up to 10. It's so pathetic. We are lacking behind. So educating the girl child, you are educating the whole nation. So that is why we are prioritizing to have a girls senior high school here so that the female child will be educated. What our parents know is to send their girl child to early marriage. But when you have an institution that they can see, they can feel, and can send the girl child there, I think we will be able to catch up with the other regions. From
Yunyo, Ilyasu Tanko reporting for JoyNews.
Let's focus now on today's special day. Valentine's Day is celebrated annually to affirm love and affection to partners, family, and friends. Well, the season also offers sales opportunities for traders to maximize profit by stocking items in the red flavor. Anita Sewa Ajogan reports chocolate is featuring prominently in the sale of Valentine products in Kumasi.
Apart from red clothing, flowers, teddy bears and wine, chocolates are among the favorite items of gifting among Ghanaians in celebrating Valentine's Day. Since 2007, Ghana has celebrated Valentine's Day as National Chocolate Day to promote the consumption of chocolate and other cocoa products among the population. The idea has caught on with Ghanaians as many buy chocolates and other cocoa products for their loved ones. Adjoa Benedicta, a trader, is cashing in on the season by selling chocolates.
Chocolates
The chocolate business is really booming. It was slow last year, but sales this year is good.
Other traders say customers often request the inclusion of chocolates in Valentine hampers.
All my customers want chocolate included in their hampers.
Because the chocolates are Valentine.
A number of businesses take advantage of the season of love to make good profits from the sale of packaged Valentine gifts. Some businesswomen who spoke to Love Business News say discounted prices on preferred products help increase sales.
For Valentine's Day, people prefer that I probably give a 20 or 30% discount rather than a hamper. Then the person chooses what she wants.
It's the season of love, and I'm right here in the Central Business District to find out how traders are planning to celebrate Valentine's Day. So join me and let's find out.
It's Valentine Day. Come on, Maya.
Valentine's is for the young folks.
Valentine.
I have never celebrated Valentine's Day. We will celebrate the Valentine's Day in the market.
And that's a wristwatch.
No matter it takes to buy it for me, I will collect it because I know any force to say ABR for ABM.
How are you celebrating Valentine's Day? Well, love is in the air. For JoyNews, Anita Sewa Ajuga reporting.
Well, on that Valentine's note and chocolatey note as well, we wrap the AM news. But stay with us as we dig into the news review. That is up next. Stay. Thank you for joining us as we get into the news review. We have all the papers here, and we're about to give you details of what exactly they are saying. Let's start with the Daily Graphic newspaper, and it says SNIT seeks strategic partners for 6 hotels. That story is on page 16. Chocolate Day. Otumfuo urges increased consumption of cocoa. Have you got any chocolate products yet? And how are you celebrating Valentine's Day? It would be interesting to note. You can share with us with the hashtag AMShow. And let us know what you're planning. If chocolate is being factored into your Valentine's celebrations. Yeah, people are complaining about the prices of chocolate as well. But what is Valentine's without it? So do let us know. That story is on page 16. But the banner headline, Transforming Petroleum Sector, Bust earmarks 200 million Ghana cedis for projects and 6 depots to be automated. I know you're interested in that one, and I'll bring you some details on it. Now, the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Bust Company Limited will spend almost 200 million Ghana cedis on a number of projects this year to help transform the petroleum sector. The investment, which will start with the procurement process this quarter, is also to bring greater efficiency into the transportation of petroleum products within the country and for export. The projects will include the automation and upgrade of all the company's depots to bring them up to modern standards to deliver improved efficiency. So those are some details from that story. You can grab more details from the Daily Graphic newspaper. Pictured there, Mr. Edwin Provençal, Chief Executive Officer of BOST. You recall that in recent times there was that very curious, weird incident where some people dropped reeds at the premises of BOST, with the name of Mr. Provençal on it, the CEO, and that raised some eyebrows. I am hoping that he is getting the security he needs, especially when people do this and inscribe your name on reeds. It is a pointer to some nefarious activity, and hopefully we can avert any such negative occurrences. Let's do the international front very quickly. French air raids kill 40 fighters in Burkina Faso. And French forces have killed dozens of fighters in Burkina Faso, linked to deadly attacks this week in neighboring Benin, whose victims included a Frenchman, the army said. The French-led Barkhane force in the Sahel region, quote, engaged its air intelligence capacities to locate the armed group responsible for the attacks before carrying out air attacks that killed 40 fighters, the Army's General Command said last Saturday. And again, Tunisian president, they have been in the picture for a while. Tunisian president cements power over judiciary. Those stories on page 5 of the paper. Let's check out some more stories. New date for E-levy reintroduction soon. Now, it appears to be quite a convoluted process. Tabling, retabling, taking away and pushing back. But the E-levy has not gone anywhere. And I'll tell you why. Deputy Majority Leader Afenyo Markin has been talking on this, and government will communicate a new date to withdraw and reintroduce the amended electronic transfer bill to Parliament. It follows the non-appearance of the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, in Parliament last Friday to withdraw and reintroduce the bill, which currently includes the amendments that the Business Committee had consensually agreed on. Now, the new bill will contain, instead of the 1.75%, will contain a 1.5% tax. And presenting the business statement for the fourth week, the Deputy Majority Leader, Mr. Alexander Afenyo Markin, ruled out the possibility of the bill being withdrawn and reintroduced on Tuesday, February 15, 2022. And so that is the latest on the E-levy. It's going to be back on the floor of Parliament. It's going to be debated, and only time will tell. Looking at the numbers, we also have the curious case of Sarah Adwoa-Safo. And what has been happening in recent times. We've heard from different elements in the MPP comment on that, some of them refraining from commenting. The assistant to Adwoa-Safo has also spoken on this matter, saying she is being unfairly targeted, that what she is doing has nothing to do with stifling the interest of the party. So how will this show in Parliament? We also have the other curious case of the Member of Parliament for Asin North, Jachikwason, and he has actually been in Parliament. He showed up over the weekend. So what are we to expect as the E-levy is retabled? Time will tell. And I'm sure Parker Wilson, our parliamentary correspondent, will bring us details of that when it hits the floor. Now, in the middle spread of the paper, Coup vaccines for safe, effective vaccination against COVID-19. There's an editorial piece there that makes for interesting reading. But that also dovetails into one of the big stories we're bringing you this morning, as the GMA, the Ghana Medical Association, digests this bit about a vaccine mandate. Do we have that? Do we even need it? And if we do need it, do we have it in place? When you look at our Public Health Act, there are wide powers that can be adopted in a situation like this, like what we face, the scourge of COVID-19. But the fact remains, there's been no official trigger of a vaccine mandate. And yet, in some instances, public officials, public health workers are being told that without showing your vaccination status, you're not going to be allowed to do X, Y, and Z. The GMA is contesting that for good reason. Of course, we already have a pretty small health service loop, and if some of them are already going to be prevented from getting into the picture, then it means we're going to have even fewer numbers to deal with the scourge of COVID-19. On the back page, Kotoko, Krobia Asante Kotoko, our very own, stretched the lead with Atuga's hat trick, and it looks like it's smooth sailing for the Porcupine Warriors. They sit atop the league log with some 36 points out of 16 matches they have played. Bechem United, Great Olympics, and Adriana Stars follow suit, all of them having played 17 matches, but the closest, Bechem United, has 30 points. Let's get now into our next newspaper from the Daily Graphic. Let's take a stab at the Ghanaian Times newspaper. And the MPA outlaws tabletop fuel stations, wages war to prevent disaster. When it comes to the bit about fuel stations, I am particularly interested because we've seen what happened on numerous occasions. We saw what happened around this very area, the Circle area, so many years ago, what led to that disastrous explosion. We've seen the atomic explosion as well, and pockets of so many of them dotted across the country. Well, the story, just to give you some details of it, it says the National Petroleum Authority has cautioned operators of tabletop fuel stations, tabletop in quote, to desist from the illegal practice before the law catches up with them. According to the authority, the practice is not only illegal, but a recipe for disaster. Don't we all agree? Now, the illegal trade is said to be rife in rural communities across the country, so this is where it becomes even more problematic. Urban areas, at least there will be some attention. Rural areas, and you see them as you travel across the country. Now, the Chief Executive Officer of MPA, Dr. Mustafa Abdul Hamid, who gave the warning, noted that the safety of fuel from such illegal stations cannot be guaranteed because they are mostly found to be adulterated. And of course, as you use these for your car, it affects everything from your engine to other parts of the car, and so multiple effects that we're having. Why should they even be allowed to do this? Yes, the MPA is making mention of this. Not that we don't know it, but why is it still in existence for so long? That is an issue. Autopsy on 13 Apiate explosion victims completed. That's according to Dr. Dasmani there. And GHS administers 12.1 million COVID-19 vaccine doses nationwide so far. That's on page 21. I'm sure you'd like to get to know snippets of what that story says as well. And a total of 12.1 million COVID-19 vaccine doses have been administered across the country as at last Friday, the Ghana Health Service has said. Out of the number, some 7,971,235 AstraZeneca vaccines have been administered. The service has also indicated that 17,982 doses of Sputnik V have been administered, while 1,057,299 doses of Moderna vaccines have been administered across the country. And some details there. You can check out more on page 21 of the paper. Now, 50 suspected criminals nabbed in police swoop in Tamale. And this makes for gory, very, very disturbing reading if you followed the matter over the weekend. The police in Tamale have arrested 50 suspected criminals in a swoop at the Tamale Forest, and the Northern Regional Police Crime Officer, Superintendent Bernard B. Ananga, who briefed the press about the swoop, indicated that several sheds belonging to the criminal gangs were destroyed and set ablaze. He mentioned that the operation took place in the morning of Saturday. Now, the crime officer said the operation was part of efforts by the police command to get rid of criminals in the metropolis. Superintendent Ananga stated that most of the criminals in the area and nearby regions were seeking shelter in the forest. According to him, intelligence information revealed that most highway robbers and other hardened criminals were hiding in the forest. And again, the crime officer also mentioned that 29 motorcycles were retrieved in the swoop. Well, that will be it for the Ghanaian Times in newspaper. But just to wrap with sports on the back page, just a confirmation that Krabi Asante Kotoko is still in the lead. They've not won it yet. And of course, there's also Ajete Strike Seals win for Olympics. They are also giving the Porcupine Warriors a hot chase. They are in third place with 28 points, having played 17 matches. Well, a very good morning, I should say, to Manuel Kurante. Good morning, my brother.
Good morning, Ben. How's it going? It's a new week, and it's
happy
Valentine's
Day. Is it weird for you if I wish you a happy Valentine's Day?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
You know, there are some people who feel, well, since I am not on the other end of the spectrum, the gender spectrum, you shouldn't be wishing.
No. Valentine's got nothing to do.
You're cool with that, yeah?
Absolutely cool. And let me say a special happy Valentine's Day to all the amazing people in my life. If you know that you're an amazing person in my life, what this is to.
Oh, mention names. Why are you afraid to mention names? Mention some names now.
Amabwating. No, I can give pseudonyms and all of that, but
please go ahead. No, I dare you to mention names this morning.
You see,
I can mention Susie Akapo freely, my mother. Happy Valentine's Day to you. How about you?
Well, which names? Comfort Latte.
Just because I went there.
But why? Do you know who Comfort Latte is?
Who is?
You don't know. Let's do the paper review.
Who is she?
Let's do the paper review.
Who is she?
Focus, man, focus.
No, I'm interested. Who is Comfort Latte?
Comfort Latte is my grandmother. I live with her, you know.
That's sweet.
All my life, and she's an amazing lady, and she's just one of the many amazing ladies in my life, and happy Valentine's.
I can mention a plethora of names, but
you have to focus. It's a new month, 14th February. Let's focus and do the paper review.
So a very naughty director is saying that your grandmom is not even she may not be. So this one you are doing, it's over the bar. But let's get into the papers you have. What are the big stories in there?
Well, let me just give you an update on that Tamale situation because the police administration has released a statement and it says that it has interdicted 6 of its officers at the center of that particular altercation, and the statement was signed by DCOP Kwesi Fori reads, following an initial investigation into the shooting incident at Lamashigu in Tamale involving the Tamale District Patrol team, the police administration has interdicted the following police officers involved, and it goes to list out the names of the officers involved, and it says that the administration has also dispatched a team of investigators led by the Deputy Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department, DCOP Frederick Ejay, to lead the investigations into the matter. Personnel from the Police Professional Standards Bureau have also been detailed alongside the CID team to work on, to look at professional standard related issues of the incident. So it goes on to assure the public of its utmost commitment to dealing with the situation, of course, assuring the people of their security. And so that's just by way of update on that particular situation in Tamale.
So there's the bit about those who were apprehended in the forest, feeling they were safe in there and they could go ahead with whatever activities they wanted to execute. And pretty interesting, narcotics and all of that involved, these motorbikes and all seized. And then we have the other end of, you know, the chaotic scenes in there as well. And some of the pictures, some of the videos, gory, I should say, you know, very troubling. People maimed, and some of them, it's early morning, it wouldn't be right to even expatiate on them. But I think these incidents, and we've had so many pockets of them in different parts of the country. Sometimes we think it's just the northern belt. Even when you come to the Volta region, we've had long-standing ones that over time we seem to think, oh, it's okay, it's all good.
It happens. So
but it takes just a little flicker and it is back.
And that goes to tell of our, you know, our intelligence gathering mechanisms that we use in the country, because really most of these incidents almost always, you know, are simmering really and have the handwriting on the wall and give one or two flashes here and there to give you indications that really they are just waiting to explode. And while we commend the police for their swift action and indeed commitment to investigating and dealing with the matter, we're also asking that this should not, this shouldn't be the goal, so that we are quickly reactive to the incidents, but we are also quite proactive to foiling and, as it were, making sure that these things do not even happen in the first
the prevention
place.
Always is better than cure. And the remedial measures come often too late, when lives have been affected, when people, sometimes people are killed, and all of that. You can't bring back a human life, that is clear. Some more stories?
Absolutely. I'll take you to the Republic Press, and please grab Coup with a picture of Oliver Bakavomawo, of Fix the Country fame. Cape Coast High Court finds 2 Asafo leaders, dismissed case against Paramount Chief on page 4. Over 190 fake electricity prepaid meters from Togo intercepted at Aflao border. And full rollout of Ghana card e-passport starts on March 1. This is according to the Ghana Airports Company Limited. Mahama writes to Akufo-Addo on criminalization of free speech And also, when you go to the Finder newspaper...
Maybe before you get to the Finder newspaper, 2 quick stories. The bit about the meters that were intercepted, of course, a story from last week, but a very positive development, especially when you consider fires that emanate from, faulty connections and all of that. So if these have been intercepted, that would be good intel there. We were just talking about the fact that even when it comes to our security services, their intel should be up to scratch. That's a good example of intel working there. But on this bit about an e-passport, it made for interesting watching yesterday with MFR Pau as the executive secretary to the vice president, Augustine Blaise, spoke on some of the pertinent matters. So we are there, but we are not there. Not exactly.
Yeah.
And by March, we're going to see some of these things coming into place. And there are countries that... It was interesting because if I may just get into some of what
details there
he made mention of, it appears, yes, we've subscribed and ICAO and all of that, but it's going to take some specific things to be able to say you are picking your passport and leaving the shores of Ghana and going into another jurisdiction and presenting your Ghana card and for it to be accepted as an e-passport. Of course, it means the e-visa component should also fit in. And those entities should be willing to give you an e-visa, which can then reflect on your Ghana card, which would serve as an e-passport. So it's not exactly...
So it's essentially
cut and dry.
You'd say it's a good first step towards something that looks like will blossom in the future. My only problem is about how, for instance, the reportage on the key ceremony went essentially, and I saw huge media houses with responsibilities of, if you like, doing a bit of due diligence, and fact checking indeed, and they are just essentially become conveyor belt. And I started seeing the press release from the office of the vice president, which essentially sort of led these media houses to report what.
So they were just regurgitating, and I saw some of them. I saw some of them online. Of course, we're not going to mention names here, but so direct in it, and it took me aback a bit, only for us to probe and realize that it may not be exactly what these people are.
Exactly, and so I mean, this is to teach all of us. I mean, not only those who might have gotten it wrong, but every one of us that. I mean, as we do this work, it's not just about doing the conveyor belt bit, and
it's not just about being the first.
Being first at press is good.
It's good.
It's good.
But do you have your facts?
Do you have your facts right? And I remember, being told by a very dear mentor of mine who says that if they give you a statement to report, they are telling you to tell their story for them. Don't take this. Take the statement.
Right.
Don't do what is in there. Fact check it. Do your own due diligence, and then put it together.
I mean, you can report what they say and add your independent findings.
Exactly.
To it. I mean, you recall, for example, when we're given certain details of our economy. What did our business crew do? Our business team. They went, got the World Bank representative, Pierre Laporte, and all of that. So we were able to give context. To the conversation. That was when this whole bit about 430 million even started, rearing its head.
And this is not to spite anybody. It's just by way of caution, and any of us could have fallen for that because, of course, if you have these newsmakers, huge newsmakers giving you statements like that, you almost always would like to go with them. But lesson well learned for everybody.
Oh yeah.
That's,
don't when your neighbor's beard is on fire, what do you do? You don't laugh.
I shave my beard.
You shave your beard. Oh, that's a good one. That's another angle to look at.
I shave my beard.
But for you, which beard though?
Can we stay on the paper review?
But before we move on to your next paper,
Ben, can we stay on the paper review?
My apologies. The bit about Oliver Barker-Vormawor and how that case has turned out. I know you have some interest in that story. What do you feel about what he put out there, especially in our context where coups are becoming an in thing again? They are in vogue, across the sub-region, and very worryingly so. But on the other hand, he's given his explanation about what he meant. People have also spoken about the fact that, and these are security analysts, security experts who have said, when someone makes such pronouncements, ask yourself, is he capable of executing a coup d'etat? Is this someone, I mean, when someone is going to execute a coup, they don't come and say, hey, I'm going to execute a coup d'etat. I mean, so there are so many dynamics to look at. What do you make of it?
And I'll just start off from the ACP Agojo case. We're told by the Attorney General's office that, in fact...
You mean DCOP? I hear. Is it Kwesi Fori?
No, Agojo.
All right.
Agojo, ACP Agojo. In fact, he's standing trial for, treason. We're told that the Attorney General...
Why do you find it laughable?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And let me just emphasize.
We saw the tools that were going to be,
and that is why I was laughing. But here's the point. The point is that he had been tailed, according to the Attorney General's office, for what? Close to 6 months before the prosecution was brought up against him. Well, this is Oliver Bakavomawo, who had posted in less than 24 hours, if you like, about 24 hours, arrived in Ghana and was picked up. I do not know if at every instance of anybody, any Ghanaian, saying that, oh, Charlie, be like a whining Koye, we have to, do a coup d'etat, the government or if like the state is going to arrest and prosecute.
That's an interesting perspective.
Assuming
1,000
Ghanaians
from different parts of the country.
Exactly.
I mean, and of course, it is. Let's make it clear: it is not something that we support or suggest in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely. But let's assume, hypothetically, that 1,000 Ghanaians or 10,000 Ghanaians in different ways suggested something of the sort. Would you pick all of them up?
You picked all of them up. If the answer is no, then I do not think that just by the mere fact that Oliver had posted, on Facebook or Twitter, what have you, then he would have been picked up the way he is being picked up and charges being brought against him.
How about looking at it from, I'll let you go on, but how about looking at it from the angle that he is someone with quite some social capital, some leverage. He is a known personality, and saying this could resonate, reverberate across the national life. People who are impressionable could feed into that. What do you make of that?
Absolutely. And that is why I say, if a statement is made and it has national security implications, whoever it is coming from, whether it's coming from Ben or Mano or Oliver or whoever,
doesn't matter.
It does matter because the balance is different.
Right.
With the personalities involved.
Oh, I get what you mean.
Exactly. But the point I'm making is that just by the mere fact that the gentleman has tweeted or posted something, you can't say because of a tweet you are going to arrest. Then, I mean, if I tweet today, would they come and arrest me or whoever tweets? I do not think that is the way that we want to carry out these operations. I think that a very well-informed security apparatus will be alert. And this, for instance, will give rise to possibly having a closer look at the operations of this particular gentleman. Now, these cases are, these tweets has exposed the person into a position where you say has implications on national security. So let us look into it. But the way we arrest people, and this is by no way in support of Oliver's statement.
Definitely.
Because if you see my social media, I've said that. Coups don't do anything better for the democratic progression.
There are always two sides to a discussion.
They don't do anything good for the democratic progression of the state.
Right.
In fact, we've seen a series of them. Took us through SAP, took us through ERP. All of those ones came through before we were even here. In fact, after the very first democratic government in the Fourth Republic, we had to go for a HIPIC program. And so if you're going to talk about whether or not coup d'etat.
Did you say the first democratic and the Fourth Republic? Because we had the Rawlings, the NDC.
Exactly. I'm saying after the very first democratic government in a Fourth Republic. So after President John Rawlings.
So when Coup came.
Exactly. And so nobody should be deceived that just by clearing a group of people in government and in power, we are going to restore the country into heavendom. No, we're not going to do that. And so don't be confused in your mind. You don't need a coup.
So if you're going to swat a fly, you don't need a sledgehammer. That is basically
not. I feel,
and there are processes to follow in these instances. And the whole macho state, apparatchik and national security. And one problem I have now is this whole bit about national security and how anywhere and everywhere. I mean, I find it so problematic, for example, that you can even see people and they are, flaunting the fact that I'm a national security. Elsewhere, you wouldn't even know. They infiltrate and they walk among you, and you don't know that these are service operatives. In this country, you see them rather with their walkie-talkies, and it's all about, I am with national security.
And bulldozing their way through every sort of activity, or some of them. But the point that I'm making, Ben, is that, and even I have issues with the time of his arrest and how he's being kept in, in breach of the Supreme Court ruling in the case of Martin People No. 4 versus Attorney General. Of course, he's not supposed to be kept in there the way he's being kept in there. So, I mean, there are different levels, and it goes to tell all of us.
And we've heard of, what's the name of the lawyer, the one who represented Akufo-Addo in the election?
Lawyer Akoto Ampao, leading the team of lawyers.
Also trying to intervene and all of that. But quickly, Manuel, it also brings to mind the bit about journalists getting apprehended in recent times. I mean, Oliver Barker-Vormawor is a different kettle of fish. We have the likes of Bubi Ansah. We have, Mensa Thompson is not a journalist. He is a social advocate. We have Captain Smart. I think there was the Power FM gentleman as well. Exactly. It appears now publication of false news. And I read something interesting on social media where people are talking about the fact that in that case, when we have people in officialdom post things that we come to find out are false, how about them? They should also be taken on. And the other side of this is people are now also pointing to the Ghana Police Service and saying Dr. Dampari started so well, but it appears if you look at some of these arrests that have been effected in recent times, it appears there's a watering down of that sort of sentiment, groundswell of support. And I don't know where this will lead, but the state machinery definitely shouldn't be used in these instances. We have examples. In the Rawlings era, under someone who was a coup maker at a point, becoming a democratic leader, who had issues with some journalists and all of that, he went to court. What is our wahala?
and I do not get our insistence on using this I call it outmoded, publication of falsehood. And really, and I made this example in quite a number of conversations that we've had the minority chief whip Muntaka Mubarak just after the election and swearing of Speaker Alban Bagbin say that a high-ranking member of the judiciary had come in there to attempt to bribe people.
I don't think we should go there.
No, I'm just
backtracked on that
exactly the point I'm making. That gave an indication that in just the same circumstance, maybe he would have been arrested. In fact, I've heard people make examples of quite trivial, if you like, but the example of Kennedy Osenyaku, who says that the E-levy cake for the majority leader was brought by a member of the minority. And eventually...
And Sam George daring them to provide the name of which member of the minority.
In fact, the majority leader himself has said that it came from a business tycoon who's also a media practitioner. And so that clears the air.
Publication of false news.
Exactly. So I'm saying that we cannot build a society where if you say anything which turns out not to be true, and in this our business, for example, with the publication of ICAO's 44,000 whatever, then all the media houses or their editors who published those would have been arrested and prosecuted. I'm saying,
I mean, if we want to go that way, it will be chaotic.
You cannot run a state like that. That just because somebody publishes false news, person is arrested and prosecuted. No. And that is why the law makes room for defamation suits and so on and so forth. So if you think that you have an issue, pick it up with the person in the civil way.
If you've been defamed.
Exactly.
Make a beeline for the court.
Exactly. Pick it up with the person the civil way and get your redress. But I don't get the business of the state in taking so much interest in who is lying and who is telling the truth quite selectively, as I've demonstrated,
especially when
this morning.
Oftentimes we also have incidents where, so to speak, the state machinery, if you fact check them, they are not necessarily honest, which would mean they are, in quote, lying. What happens to them?
I mean, and of course, the stories abound, but I guess the point is made that you cannot build a state by going after people who you think have said stuff that are not true. You can't do that.
Anyway, I think we'll have ample time to veer into some of those issues. But of course, for worry, definitely, some of these matters that are rearing their heads, especially as in the past we have heard of so many. You remember some of the comments from, what's his name, Sam Jonah? Anyway, let's leave it there. Let's wrap with the papers you have.
Okay, and so more stories here. ADB to open 14 new branches, that's according to MD. MPA reviews Petroleum Act to meet international standards, and it comes with a picture of the CEO, Dr. Mustafa Abdelhamid, and I heard him say that all those tanker drivers, if you like, haulage companies that are involved in the diversion of fuel are going to be tracked down and prosecuted. That, I agree with him 300%. 96.5% of children in 7 regions are schooling, according to the Child Rights International. Akufo-Addo outlines plans to combat illegal fishing. And here's a Abronye saying that Vomawo working for John Mahama. And so he said this. I mean, if it turns out to be true or not true, will he be arrested?
I think we should take such comments in order not to be brash with a pinch of salt, because in the past, when certain social advocacy groups or CSOs and the rest were doing certain things, advocacy groups that we don't see doing anything now, well, how would we paint them? Would we say that merely because they were active then and not active now, they were doing the bidding of the then opposition?
Exactly.
So this doesn't wash for me.
Especially when we've seen...
It is nothing we should even be...
Especially when we've seen that these pressure groups, Fix the Country, EFL and so on, have publicly refused any support and so on. And I covered the Fix the Country demonstration. I saw Dr. Abu Sakara come to solidarize with them. In fact, they told him to leave because really you're part of the political elite who are, in this capture together. And so, well, I'm not Oliver's PR or spokesperson, so I'll leave it there. Jomor MP has 2 dates of birth. This is page 3 of the Daily Guide. E-passport. Yes, Avotofi. And then you have e-passport days NDC, and it starts 1st March with a picture of Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. And 7 illegal lotto kingpins arrested. That is also on the front page of the Daily Guide. The final newspaper, I've done that already. Let me end. Okay, so let me end with the back page of the Daily Guide with some sports news. Konedu Iadom AstroTurf ready for use. Renault gives 2 vehicles to GBA for Pro Boxing League. Chelsea clinch Club World Cup. And for now, they say that they have taken every cup that is in the world for a club to have won. I'm very sad by that happening.
Okay, I like the fact that you pronounced it Renault like and not Renault like. Anyway, our final story: the BNFT customers' appetite for online banking reduces. This is interesting for me, and I'm sure you know why. Let's see how things will pan out moving forward. But thank you so much for joining the conversation, and you, Manuel Kranting, thank you so much.
Absolutely,
for joining the Valentine's Day edition.
You should have been in a red tie. You are protesting. You are protesting against Valentine.
I will not allow you to do this. Let's see whether Muftau Nabila Abdullahi, who is bringing us sports, is in anything red. Sports is up next Tuesday.
A hat-trick in February as Kumasi Asante Kotoka's Cameroon import Mbella secured the Porcupines 3-1 win as they extended their lead at the summit of the Ghana Premier League table. He has now scored 12 goals in 11 matches for the Porcupine Warriors. And also in the English Premier League, Manchester United continue to struggle as they dropped points against Southampton. at home. Whilst Liverpool cut the lead on Manchester City at the summit of the Premier League table to 9 points. We've got these and many more here on AM Sports with me, Muftar Nabila Abdullah. Let's start with Ghana Premier League stories, where Kumasi Asante Kotoko, their Cameroonian import, Frank Mbella scored a hat-trick as a Porcupine, 1-3-1 against Accra Lions. As the Porcupines were winning at the Bawayara Sports Stadium, their rivals, defending champions of the Ghana Premier League, Accra House of Folk, were in Tamale to come up against Real Tamale United, and their fixture ended 0-0. Dr. Prosper Nate Ogum and Samuel Bodu, they have had mixed sort of action following the outcome of the matches involving their teams. For Dr. Prosper Nate Ogum, his star men have shown that they deserve applause from him and every follower of Kumasi Asante Kotoko. Whilst Samuel Bodu, he believes that his side's inability to convert chances that come their way could end up having them punished.
I think about him is that what you tell him is what he goes to do, and sometimes he will even add more to what you've told him. And that's a hallmark of a great player in the making.
What about the hat-trick hero today, Etuga?
You know him already. He's a super player. I don't know what to tell him, but congratulations to him.
Yeah, it was a very nice game. You could see that House of Folk, people were thinking that without central defenders, we cannot play. But I believe my boys, and I know that I said that I'm building all-round team. If we don't have Kwaku, Kwame is there. So this shows that all the players out there can also bring out their best. It was a very nice game.
And today there were a couple of chances you had in that first half. Most of them falling to Isaac Mensah. Is it a worry that you're not taking those chances?
Yeah, being a coach is a worry to me because when you get such a chance and you misuse it, when the opponent get that particular the same chance, he will use to punish you. But I'll congratulate the boys and the technical team for the information that they give it to me, and I hope the boys did well. But we have more room to improve.
Let's talk about tribal games, and Zamarma's tribe are aiming to defend their title at the second edition of the Zongo Intertribal Gala Tournament, which kickstarts today. The tournament is made up of 20 tribes across the country. This is to promote peace and unity among Zongo communities. Tournament organizer Awalu Angulu Mahama has been speaking to my colleague Mubarak Haruna.
Bringing us together, we use that platform to educate our boys in social vices. Also tell them to be serious in their football, just like what you're asking me, to be disciplined. Sometimes people come to and pick some players over there. Last year like this, some players were picked, went on trials in the local league. Some were picked outside. A guy who played for one of the tribes is now in Malaysia. Another guy who played for the Zabarma is now in Dubai. So it's an opportunity for everything. We use it for peace, unity. You know, football brings us together. So when anything about football, you will not see anything about politics. You don't see anything about anything. We are all there, everybody. You could see if it's a tribe, those tribes have NDC, have NPP, have CPP, but they are supporting their tribe. So, and it entertains people. Even those who don't play, those who watch, it brings us together. So people are praising what we are doing. So
how many teams? How many tribes?
This year we have 20. Because some are not able to raise their teams this time. Some of them because it's not easy to raise and look for your tribe's player. Because somebody can come from Kaswa, somebody, you see. So when you are not strong and you can't. So some are not able to raise. So last year we played 22 teams, but this year 20 teams. Yes, some are late. Later they came in, but we've already balloted. So we have 20 teams, and we are starting on Monday 14th, and we'll end on the 23rd. On the 13th of March. Because 10 teams, they'll play, and 20 teams will play, and 10 teams will qualify. And we'll pick 6 best losers, and add it to the 10. And we'll play 16, and we'll get 8. We don't want to be an even number. So with the 6 best losers, we add it to the 10. Then we play 16. 8, 4, 2, and finish. So that we get it accurate.
Thank
Well, here we are as we focus on the big stories for today. We start with a one-on-one discourse with a stalwart of the New Patriotic Party. He is a key player in this administration. He is former Member of Parliament for Adenta constituency. He served in the 7th Parliament of the Republic. Today, he is Director of Communications with the MPP, or of the MPP. And we're going to discourse on matters of national concern, but matters also of the party, the NPP and administration, and how things are shaping up. Yabo Abena-Samoa is our guest this morning. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you, bro.
And I was just reminding you that the last time we seemed to have had an interaction was on the dawn of the 8th Parliament, in the ring where we had our discussions and all of that. And I remember some of the banter, the discourse we had.
I like it when you say in the ring.
In the ring.
Since then they
no, not the boxing ring, but it appears since then they have
in the ring.
How do you feel about that, though? Lest I forget, you used to be in that house, and now it's devolved into an issue of fisticuffs and all of that. How does that make you feel?
Two aspects, both arising directly from the confluence of numbers. Obviously, Ghanaians voted, and this is the parliament Ghanaians voted for. Now, the two things that are coming out is that, one, in spite of the closeness of the numbers, in spite of the appearance of impasse, and sometimes the fisticuffs and the banter, we still have a parliament and a stable democratic system.
Okay.
That is extremely important. 30 years of the Fourth Republic must be nurtured and continued at all costs, because that is the way forward. The very fact that Ghanaians are sophisticated enough to vote a hung parliament in and then observe how that parliament conducts itself, and it hasn't degenerated into anything but...
You say it hasn't degenerated? We've never seen scenes
So I'm going to the second level.
Before.
I'm going to the second point, that it hasn't degenerated beyond what we are seeing in parliament. Because, let's face it, regrettable as it is, and it is regrettable, there are other jurisdictions where worse happens. There are places where guns have been shot in the chamber, fisticuffs and all that. But the thing is a question of stability and progress beyond that. What I hope will not happen is that we descend into an impasse where we believe that the only way forward is through fisticuffs. That is a disaster. That means Parliament will be gridlocked, and then there's nothing we can do there. I think at some point they must give way to genuine dialogue, because that's what Parliament is for. The majority proposes, minority opposes to the utmost, and once they oppose and put their views on record, the majority's view must prevail in legislation. Once it prevails, the ultimate test is the people's vote. If the policies are poor, the people will vote us out. If the policies are good and sustainable, the people will keep us there, irrespective of the difficulty at the beginning when you are implementing.
Do you feel the opposition has been intransigent? And we'll get to talk about the E-levy extensively, so I'm not trying to jump the gun. But do you feel in all of this, especially looking at the numbers and the sort of positioning of the opposition, their utterances, do you feel they are being intransigent just because of the numbers?
Frankly, I believe so. I believe they are misusing the numbers, frankly.
They are misusing the numbers?
I think so. And it's come up. Well, the positions they are taking. Like you said, we'll come to E-levy at length. But before Parliament could debate E-levy, they had already made up their minds. You understand that we will refuse this, and it seems to be in collaboration with the external party, the party proper. So the question of the relationship between the party outside Parliament and the needs and ends of Parliament seem to be clashing. Yes, because the party is totally focused on securing power. Okay? And the parliamentary caucus is involved in the national process of delivering legislation for growth. So somehow the parliamentary caucus have a more responsible job to do than the external party, which is simply focused on securing power. But now it appears the parliamentary caucus is being driven by the external need. The parties need to secure power. And the most obvious avenue is to use the numbers to block legislation. And in the belief that if you keep blocking legislation, then the government will become unpopular and fall.
But isn't that something you would have done in their position? It's a novelty to have the sort of numbers that we have in this Fourth Republic. Some would say even, what are the chances of getting an even Stevens? But that's exactly where we find ourselves. Only with the Member of Parliament for Fomena making the difference because he has opted to join your caucus and he was a member before he went independent. But in their shoes, you would be doing exactly the same, if not worse. I'm putting that to you. Wouldn't that be the case?
Not necessarily, but even if we were, that's why I'm saying that I will be happy to see that at some point they go towards consensus. But what would be bad is a complete gridlock. So yes, it's a process. And if we were there, given these numbers, and we felt sincerely that there was something we needed to do, we would do it, but we would respect the numbers. We must respect the single majority that's forming, because the majority must be able to vote and have legal backing for their proposals. You know, this nearly happened before.
Which is what? The numbers we have?
The numbers.
Right.
In the transition from President Kufuor's government to President Mills's government, then candidate Akufo-Addo beat President Mills in the first round by over 100,000 votes. But he didn't make 50+1.
Right.
On the other side, Parliament, we had already dropped below 100. We had 99 seats and the NDC had hit over 130 seats. So if then candidate Akufo-Addo had gone through on the first ballot, he would have had to contend with a large NDC majority in Parliament.
Right. I recall.
You recall that.
And even the assumptions that were made on that, and for which reason some said they twisted or turned their vote because they felt that, I mean, if you can't govern because with this kind of parliament, you will not be able to make it.
That argument was first made by President Kufuor when he was coming in earlier in 1999, 2000.
Right.
Remember the first round, they all came in under 50% substantially, and then we had to go for a second round.
He mentioned that, look. I mean,
and then he said that
we have the numbers.
We have the numbers.
They can't govern, so just give it to us.
Just give it to us. Right. So it turned very, very substantially in his favor. That is when all the minor parties will then come in and put their weight behind you. And all undecided voters accepted that argument and put their weight behind. So President Mills benefited from that.
Right.
And now we are in a situation where on the first ballot, it didn't have to go for a second round. We have a hung parliament.
Right.
So we need to sincerely work this. We need to do it with a nationalist sense that we are growing. So nobody should exploit the numbers with a view to undermining the system that makes the numbers possible. You know what I'm saying? It's like free speech. You can't use free speech to undermine the instrument that gives you free speech.
Right.
And therefore, I am hoping that parliamentary practice, as we have it, growing, and we are heading towards a 9th parliament, also at this time of novelty, gives us constructive procedures that can feed into the 9th parliament. So that perhaps next time, when we have a majority in parliament different from the executive, we will have the ways forward in terms of dealing with it from the 8th parliament.
Talking about the ways forward, do you feel our parliament as it stands now with the standing orders and everything is not exactly framed in a proper way to be able to handle what we're having now in terms of this hung parliament, which some people refuse is a hung parliament? But you can see clearly that there are a lot of questions about the numbers, about the quorum, about voting, that have turned out to be very problematic for this parliament and will be problematic till we do something about that. What do you think?
It is a hung parliament. Now, those matters you're raising, quorum voting and all those issues, because of the majority, large majorities of before, we never looked at critically, but they are germane. So recently, I took a very close look at the standing orders, which incidentally are far advanced in terms of changes. But the current one, I took a look at it and I was surprised that what I took for granted in the 7th Parliament about the Speaker's movements off the podium and otherwise is actually provided for in the standing orders. So yes, we have a rule we can go by. The question that has been outstanding in Parliament, if I may say so, is whether or not the second deputy speaker, first deputy speaker, presiding can vote.
Right.
If
that is still a matter we're waiting for clarity.
I haven't read the standing orders. I'm totally convinced that they can vote.
Why?
Why is that? Because the first deputy speaker and the second deputy speaker are MPs.
But once they act in that capacity, I mean, in the past, have we had situations where they voted?
I'm getting there. The speaker under Order 13.1 can get up at any time, provided there's another available speaker to sit in.
Which is the first deputy or the second deputy?
Yes.
Right.
So when the speaker gets up, at any stage of the proceedings, he doesn't have to give instructions about the reason why he's getting up under Order 13.1.
Right.
He just walks away and the other one replaces, irrespective of the stage of proceedings.
Right.
So the speaker doesn't have a vote. So he gets up, he goes away. If the first deputy speaker is in the chair, that the speaker has the capacity to get up and walk away means that the first deputy also has capacity to invite the second deputy to preside and step off the podium, take off his robe, and go and vote as an MP.
But that has never, historically, there's no antecedent.
Exactly. That is why I'm saying that we don't have antecedents for the 8th Parliament, but we have standing orders that can be interpreted as such. And so it's a new situation. We must move beyond the fisticuffs and begin to deal with standing orders.
So you subscribe to those members of your party who say that the first and second deputies, when they sit in place of the speaker, are not necessarily the speaker. They are merely acting.
At the time they are sitting there, they are the speaker. But I'm saying,
but if and that's the logic of it. If they are the speaker, then
when
they must
are
act
sitting
as the speaker acts.
When
the speaker
they
doesn't
are sitting,
take a turn off to come and vote because of course he's not
the speaker is not an MP.
A member of Parliament.
Exactly.
Yes. But I mean, he doesn't, apart from leaving the chamber for some reason, which he doesn't even have to specify as he's put out. He doesn't partake in the process. So it is assumed that the others will also not partake in.
No, you can't make that assumption because they are MPs. They have duties. They've been sent there with rights, imbued rights from their constituents. Their constituents elected them to come and represent them. And part of their representation is voting.
Right.
You cannot deny them the vote. They cannot vote, they cannot participate as long as they are sitting in the chair. That's my view. 13.1. As long as they are sitting in the chair, they have no rights of debate and voting. But when they get up out of that chair, and descend into the chamber. They are already in the chamber, but they're on a podium. When they descend into the well of the chamber, they are MPs and they have a right to vote. So if the first deputy speaker is presiding and the second deputy speaker is in the well, second deputy speaker can vote and take over the speakership for the first deputy speaker to come and exercise his rights as an MP. If
your caucus was so certain about this, how come you haven't used the standing orders, the law, so to speak, to have your way? Because on the floor of Parliament, you've been fiercely resisted by the minority, and it's one of the instances that degenerated into fighting on the floor of Parliament.
I believe that Friday, before the rise, this is the matter that was in issue when they were trying to slash.
Right.
Yes, and it's unfortunate that the NDC couldn't accede to that argument and get it over and done with. Because I am convinced beyond all doubt that the rights of the deputy speakers as members of Parliament are not extinguished.
Would you have felt the same way?
By them sitting in the chair.
Would you have felt the same way if you were on the other side? I mean, aren't you convinced merely because this inures to the benefit of the party you represent?
I have a right to be convinced. We are doing politics. We need capacity, opportunity, and ability to pass our legislation. The government is of the party.
Right.
And so once the party is in charge, we have the situation. We must deal with it in a way that furthers the interest of the government in terms of its program. This program is backed by legislation. So it must pass its legislation. If we don't find a path through Parliament in the current situation, it means the government will be hamstrung. It means the government cannot proceed with its legislative agenda or executive agenda because it's all backed by legislation. The executive agenda is backed by legislation. So it's not a question of sitting back because they have the numbers, allow them to. It's a question of employing all the opportunities at our command, including compromise, negotiations, persuasion, and the strict application of the rules. All of that comes into play. So yes, if we're in that position, we would go for it till we were blocked by the law. And I'm saying that as at now, the NDC is blocked by the law because of our 138, though 2 are deputy speakers, they exercise a vote when they are not sitting on the podium.
Right.
And therefore, the NDC should accept that we need to pass our legislation. We have sufficient numbers to do so, and they have made their point. The whole world, the whole country has heard their point, and that their duty ends at that point where everybody has heard them. The rest depends on the electorate, who will determine whether or not our legislation served their interest enough to continue us in power. That is the bottom line.
Okay. We'll stay with Parliament, where there's been a lot of discourse and pushback and all of that. But let's talk about the E-levy. What is your initial take on this entire bit about an E-levy, electronic transactions being taxed, and not just the service charge being taxed or being levied? This is an additional levy. And we don't really see that. Even if you look at the example across the sub-region, you have the service tax being levied by different governments, from Cameroon to Kenya to other parts of the African continent. In this instance, we want to impose a further levy on the people, apart from the 1%, now 0.75%, and all of that. And people have raised the question about our taxes and what they are even being used for in the first place. And we've also had the infamous bit about a cake at the majority leaders.
You couldn't avoid that, could you? That was a dig.
No, not a dig, but it has been in the media space. There's nothing we can do about that.
It was unfortunate.
But this entire E-levy, be frank with me, if this had been an NDC government and they had said E-levy, how would you have reacted? Would you have embraced it?
I think E-levy is extremely important in the context of where we are as a local economy, as an African economy, as an international economy, post-COVID. COVID recovery gives us opportunity to restructure ourselves and make ourselves more competitive in the coming economy. The economy will never revert to normal. We have to do new things. Western economies are coming under pressure. They are moving from negative interest rates to high inflationary interest rates. Inflation has hit 7%. It was in America a 40-year high record.
Yes,
okay.
But let's put it into context, because in the United States that 7% high has nothing to do with COVID. You agree with me? It has to do with I followed that story extensively. It has to do with food prices. It has to do with accommodation prices. It has to do with electricity prices. Exactly. And they are clear that, the impact of COVID is not fed into this. It has nothing to do with COVID.
That COVID had nothing to do with food prices rising worldwide.
Not in terms of this particular occasion.
I would be surprised if the entire American economy had changed. They were pumping trillions in there to support families against COVID, and they are saying that it's not increasing
I'm saying that
inflation.
there are COVID dynamics. I think the 7%.
Well, I'm glad you're saying there are COVID dynamics. Even the IMF, which is literally run by America, is telling us that COVID has impacted the world economy negatively, and that it is creating rising prices. It cites accommodation, it cites food, it cites fuel prices, and it cites the cost of capital. It says capital is going up, and it cites the fact that it will create confusion in capital flows across the world. This is the World Economic Outlook of the IMF, published in January 2022. So what I'm saying is that the disruption to economies is so broad that we in Ghana, driving a process in Africa, should be looking to reform how our economies are calibrated and improve our competitiveness in the international economy. And therefore, E-levy, to my mind, is a nationalist call. Where do you get resources to act as a catalyst within this economy so that we can boost competitiveness?
Some have suggested cut your expenditure.
Yes.
Look at how much the expenditure is
The
for the executive. I mean, the add-on year on year.
The pushback.
The millions we've added.
Yes.
They say cut on waste.
Yes.
The Auditor General has told us over 12 billion Ghana cedis has gone into waste. I mean, I could go on and on.
Let me land on that. The pushback.
On this
Can I address the pushback?
Even yes, I'll give you the opportunity, but I just want you to put all of this together. Even the recent flight of the president, some have called it into question. They are looking at the computation from Ghana to France to Guyana and all of that. And the fact that it's costing the Ghanaian taxpayer, in terms of the initial bill, $14,000 an hour, 476,000.
Is that an invoice from the security services?
These are details that, I mean, based on the security services and where the route he's
from
going.
The security services.
The security services, mind you, the security services. When we've invited them on the floor of Parliament, what have they had to tell us? They've told us it's a national security issue, and they are not willing to discuss it.
So the pushback is based on government expenditure, waste, and then sources that haven't been exploited fully. Okay, when you talk about government expenditure, you say the expenditure in the executive is increasing. This last year, certain agencies, in fact, 2022, post 2020,
right,
2021, 2020, certain agencies of the government, which were ministries before, have been collapsed and sent into the presidency. They are budgeted for, including the Zongo ministry, which is now coordinated from the presidency. So their budget is there, including the special development initiatives, presidential special development initiatives.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There are these agencies which used to be ministries, monitoring evaluation, which have been located in the presidency. So they are provided for in the budget of the presidency.
Right.
It's not a question of the president's household increasing its expenditure.
But does it still account for the ballooning that we are seeing? I mean, if we are going to cut our coat according to our cloth, you would expect that even with the executive, yes, you have these initiatives, but we'll cut down on spending.
This year, the executive said it is cutting down 20% of projected expenditure. It has stated that it is cutting down 20% of projected expenditure. Then when it comes to the waste, it is also actively dealing with the waste. What is the waste? Leakages due to human contact, where money is exchanged hands. What is supposed to go to the state doesn't go, particularly at ports and in the...
But I thought we had rectified all of that with the items and everything.
Yes, but it's not. We are not completely there yet. Paperless has shot up our revenues extremely. ICOMS is there, but there are still... things, little things, and then on the other side, we are trying to eliminate the Goro things. You know, you can renew renew your NHIA online. You can apply for your passport online and all that. So digitization is advancing the fight against leakages. That's what I want to establish. That leakages, yes, but digitization is also expanding the frontier against that. So we will be conserving over time, but it's over time.
Okay.
Then you have the unexploited, where people talk about property taxes and all that. We need to revamp and implement a property tax thing that will be acceptable to as many as possible and will bring in income. And the government has started that by doing this.
I was just about to point that. And even Pierre Laporte of the World Bank pointed same out to you, that you could use that avenue.
Yes, we've done the identification part of it. We've identified the properties nationwide. Now we are going to build a uniform database, which will do the rating and then use digital means to do the collection.
Right.
So that will improve. But again, we are saying that we are at a junction where the E-levy, to my mind, is a brand new opportunity. You have monies that are brand new, which means you are not stressing old sources of tax. You're not stressing corporate
but that's
taxes.
Exactly what you're doing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's brand new.
No, that's exactly. You are stressing old, because the same people paying tax are the same people going to be levied, who are conducting these money electronic transactions. It's the same pool.
But that market has grown to a $1 trillion CD market on the back of government facilitation, government infrastructure. It is important that government takes an interest in it.
Why don't you? Yes, you've created the infrastructure, and I was even listening to the BBC earlier this morning talking about Airbnb across the world and an entity in Africa that is trying to replicate that for the African continent. What are they going to run on? Mobile money transactions. Yes. If you facilitate it and you bring in something like an E-levy, you are basically going to cripple the same industry that you... And we have examples. We have example, We have example in different countries, from Uganda to Cameroon and all of that. Some even implementing a 0.2% with the pushback so huge that they had to back down. So with a 1.75 now being suggested to a 1.5, yes. I mean...
That is why I'm saying that Ghana has a unique opportunity to influence the African economy by accepting this within the Ghanaian economy, because it has potential to change a lot of things.
Okay, it has potential.
Yes.
Just clarify this for me. I asked you initially. Would you, if you were to trade places, the NDC is in power and you are in opposition right now with the numbers you have, and they brought in an E-levy on the back of COVID, would you have supported it?
It's far-fetched. I'm not in that position, but I am in a position where I believe the government has brought a far-sighted measure that ought to be supported. I believe very strongly that the government is being courageous about the way forward. I believe that the government is pulling out all the stops in order to get Ghanaians onto a path that is more sustainable and can lead us to more competitive positions in the international market. You spoke about going the traditional way.
You spoke about the 20% cut in expenditure.
Yes.
Till today, we don't have any framework. We don't have any, I mean, the budget statement, unless we're going for the mid-year budget review or something, we don't have anything as of now that points to the fact that we've had 20% slashed in this sector or that sector and this and that. It's rhetoric. We don't have it anymore.
No, it's not rhetoric. It will be implemented administratively.
Will be implemented?
Yes, administratively. But the finance minister has stated it clearly that it simply means matching revenues to expenditures up to 80%.
Okay.
That they are not going to pay beyond that. So it's going to be implemented administratively. But he's giving that broad understanding.
So if there were a designation for about 5 billion for this entity, it means that you can go up to 4 billion and nothing further than that. That's what you're saying.
That's what it means.
But how are we going then to be able to fact check and you know, follow these? Because in some instances, we know that when it comes to the ministries, and this is where I'm asking it from, when it comes to the ministries, there's push and shove, and this has been allocated, but sometimes you overspend. You do this, you do that. So in the end, aren't we going to end up in the same place?
So it will be interesting and brilliant for the media to go beyond and also establish mechanisms for fact-checking with government agencies and institutions. Nothing stops you from that.
It's not the easiest thing getting information from them, even with the right to information.
It's also not the best that sometimes it's rumor that drives the process. You know, as early as the Champon days, we use rumor to fish for real information. That once a rumor is put out, then the relevant government agency is compelled to come and respond to the rumor and put out the facts. We can be more proactive. The finance ministry is asking us to do something novel.
Right.
The finance ministry is saying that we in Ghana can implement something that appears not to have been well received in other African countries. The finance minister is saying that if we succeed, we can boot our economic recovery process with funds that are not loans, that are not burdened by interest payments, that are raised from within the country, and that can be ring-fenced and directed, targeted at specific interventions, which will act as a catalyst in our economy. All these positives are there. So the finance ministry also ought to have a responsibility to be accountable.
Why on the spectrum, when it comes to accountability, that's a whole different ballgame, because a lot of people, in fact, there's a recent survey that points over the years that point to the fact that I think it's the Afrobarometer, the CDD, that put it together. Since 2013 or so, Ghanaians are willing to pay taxes or levies or whatever.
Yes.
Up to about 80%, close to 90%, it's been fluctuating. I think the last one was around 73%. The problem has to do with accountability, how you use our taxes. And I think Gabia Otredako in recent times tweeted as well on that. That has been the fulcrum of the conversation. But let me find out, why are we not charging the telcos instead? Why create an extra burden when I am transacting with mobile money? And we're all rational beings. When it comes to money matters, we are rational, very rational. Why is it that some people buy products emanating from China and the rest because of their pricing over products that are made here in Ghana? Patriotic, yes, but these are rational financial decisions that have to be made. Why are we not charging the telcos that are getting so much. MTN also is willing, because the others are not even charging anything. MTN is willing to come down to 0.75%, which I've not seen being implemented then, from 1%. Why not charge them instead of adding on to the ordinary user?
That first question, the best answer I can give is that's a policy measure.
It's a policy
government
measure,
policy.
even if the people will feel the pinch.
Government has carefully researched and thought through and decided that at this stage, an e-levy would be important and useful. Before, if you recall, there was an increase in CST, top tax, which had to be brought down.
Customer service tax.
Which had to be brought down, if you recollect, in response to the people. And then you have the service providers who are taking a service charge, a service fee. And then they have said that once the entire measure goes through, they are willing to drop their charge by 0.25%.
Right.
It's part of the larger measure of receiving. You cannot start implementing the 0.25 without the other measure approved by Parliament. So all of that is there, and they are going forward. Then the second part of the question about people accessing the service and dropping off and all that, frankly, before interoperability, some of the financial transactions people had to go through cost more manually than going through this process. Because you can now sit at this desk, go to your bank, make payments for services, donations to family, and transact business abroad through your right here on your phone. You can interact with your wallet, your bank account, your international partners, everything. Now we have PAPs for after. You can have that. Then you can have the situation where I live in Adenta. I set off at 5:30 this morning, and I barely managed to get here by 7:30. And then I go and queue in a bank to take money out, irrespective of the amount. I have to queue for another couple of hours. Then I sit in another means of transport and drive across the capital from the eastern side into the center of Accra to the western side, another couple of hours sitting in traffic to deliver the finance, the resource. And after delivering it, I then get onto another piece of public transport. So getting the intent and executing it may take a whole day just to take money from the bank and go and deliver it.
But that's exactly what some people have suggested you're going to push us to. People will now
that is where we were before.
People will now want to hold cash and make payments once they're paying anything above the threshold of 100.
What I'm trying to do is compare the then existing inconveniences and going back to them as against going forward. Because it will cost you several layers of financing public transport to do this trip, a return trip. It will cost you several layers of financing, maybe even more than the amount of money you want to go and give over, because you have no other means of doing it. And then the inconvenience of the hours wasted, and then the possibility of being attacked, robbers and all that. Worst of all, the possibility of being in an accident. You are mobile, moving from one vehicle to another. So you have all the possibilities that could be negative. We don't wish they happen, but we had that marketplace. People complained about pickpockets taking their money when they are trying to get into Trotsky's and all that, and cars getting jammed and injuries here and there.
I mean, it still happens, and people's mobile money accounts are also hacked and all of that. So
part of the money being asked for is to strengthen the platform and improve security. Part of the money is earmarked for that. So the convenience of staying with the service is far higher than the inconvenience of withdrawing from the service because of the e-levy.
There are those who have also said that this is going to hamper, and experts who have also said that this is going to hamper the whole digitizing and digitalizing agenda as well.
Yes.
Both of them put
I've read very powerful.
How do you feel
experts.
about it, quickly?
I am enjoying the debate. The very, very erudite tax experts, academics, and speaking to these issues. But there's always a hump. When you are implementing a policy, there's always a hump. There will be those who will be brought in immediately, those who will fall out, and those who will come on board later. Once we go over that hump, I think we should talk ourselves through that hump.
Okay.
Yes, that's what we must do. We accept that there's a hump about waste, about collection, about efficiency and all that. But there's also the benefits in terms of monies that can be earmarked to invest in sectors that will act as a catalyst to the economy. So let's get over that hump and engage.
I don't know whether if this is implemented, how Ghanaians would get over a hump of an E-levy, how they would react to it.
Because the hump is about the engagement. You're saying that there are experts, and I'm saying
I understand. I was also just using another analogy. But to wrap the conversation on the E-levy, first of all, are you hopeful? Do you believe it would actually pass on the floor of Parliament into a law and be implemented? And I mean, without some of the shortfalls that have been forecast, where lots of people are going to get off and not transact as often, and also put into perspective the fact that you don't have the numbers to execute this.
With the ongoing conversations, town hall meetings led by the minister,
where you're spending more of taxpayers' money.
We are investing in getting the E-levy.
If this were popular, you wouldn't have to be doing all that.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's a courageous government that will push something worth it without fear of electoral losses. And that it is a test of the value of the E-levy. That will be 2024.
Okay.
Yes. So we are not doing this to test popularity in terms of electoral votes. We are doing this as a national necessity, a call to national duty. The patriotic call that you said, that using that, we can transform our economy at our own pace, under our own steam. The other options will not transform this economy. The other options do not inject competitiveness. The other options stall and stagnate us, and we go back. So it is not good enough to go back in a post-COVID economy. It won't help us. We have too much experience of that. So this is an opportunity to break through and go forward. So I believe that it will pass. I believe that the consultations ongoing and all that will bring to the fore the core need for this and the value to the Ghanaian economy going forward.
So to wrap on the E-levy, two angles. The Asin North Member of Parliament, Jachi Kwesen, is still coming to Parliament.
Yes.
He's still featuring, and he has every intent of voting if you table the E-levy, as you bring it back with a 1.5% suggestion. But on the other hand, you have an Adwo Asafo situation, Member of Parliament for Dome Kwabenya, and some say she's holding your party to ransom, that she wants to be Deputy Majority Leader. All suggestions, and how do you feel about that? Do you feel she's not helping the front of the MPP in Parliament?
I can't confirm whether there are demands or otherwise, authoritatively. I can't. But what I would say is that it's a duty of the majority leadership to ensure that at the right time we have the numbers to pass that piece of legislation.
She's been away from Parliament for a while. She has every intention. She's put in a request to extend her stay, and your party has denied her, supposedly with the intent to trigger certain processes to then have a by-election or something so that she can be set aside. Why would you do that?
I am not in a position to confirm what you're saying now. I said that as far as that matter is concerned, the majority leadership in Parliament will lead us forward. And I'm prepared to wait for the...
Let's assume you've been in Parliament.
Yes.
Let's assume she is flouting, okay?
Why do you want to make assumptions?
The directives, because some of your own people have said it, that she's going counter to what your party suggests. So let's assume she is doing that. Do you think your party would have the temerity to call for a by-election in where you find yourself with a hung Parliament? Would you have that sort of will to do that?
Happily, things are unfolding to the point where assumptions are not even necessary. We need this, and we need it fast. So I am still insisting that our majority leadership is fixed squarely in the resolution of any such matters. Because if our own people are speculating outside, it doesn't advance the process. Now I'm being invited to make assumptions. It won't help.
Now that you're talking about the majority leadership in Parliament,
deal with it,
I think I recall Professor Jampo, Ransford Jampo, making mention of the fact that I think in the course of our hung Parliament, saying that your majority leadership maybe even the bullish or hawkish nature they have adopted in terms of the E-levy and others, it doesn't make them, they may not be the right people to be leading your party at this juncture. Afenyo Markin, Oseiche Mensah Bonsu, and that you need a new leadership. How do you react to that?
We have had 8 parliaments. If we're not growing, such comments would be, but we are growing. And in the growth process, we know how we interact in Parliament. you can see us going at it, hammer and tongs, but privately, we all appreciate our roles. We understand what we are there to do. Yes, so sometimes hawkishness or dovishness or compromise consultation may be going on even between the 2 hotly most contested. When I was in Parliament, I had very good friends on the NEC side. Friends who would not let me open my mouth, given the opportunity. As soon as I stand up, they will start attacking me across the aisle. Vociferously. Attacking me. You understand? We've had occasions where we're on committees and we've disagreed. And we've attacked each other on the conclusions of the committee or otherwise. But we have always maintained our friendships.
Sarah Adwoa Safo has been in leadership in your party before.
Yes.
Does she qualify? I mean, if to be deputy majority leader, for example, or maybe even be majority leader.
But she's already been deputy majority leader.
Yeah.
So she
because some have suggested painted it as though
she's not the deputy majority leader now. Now the Honorable Afenyo Markin is the deputy majority leader. Yes.
Would you rather have an Adwoa Safo over?
Now, as we speak, J. Mensah Bonsu, Honorable, is our majority leader. The Honorable Afenyo Markin is our deputy majority.
Doesn't mean
leader.
You can't change it.
I have absolute confidence in the leadership and their ability to deliver.
They've not been able to deliver the E-levy.
With a hung parliament, they are even doing well that we are still talking about it. They are doing well that we are even still talking about it, and it has potential to go back, which it will.
Let's move the conversation forward. It's been one tenure already, one term of the MPP. You've entered a second term.
Yes.
How do you feel the MPP is faring in this second term? You've been bruised and battered with all kinds of allegations. The corruption perception indices have not, worked in your favor. 43 to 43, your score there. Just a bit of an increase in terms of where we are placing from 75th to 73rd. Then we have COVID. Then we have this E-levy whole bit in there. Doesn't look like things are the rosiest for the MPP.
I think we underestimated as a population the economic cost of recovery from the impositions that our health needs forced us into. Because when you stop production entirely over a long period, what you do is that you disrupt supply chains. You even disrupt demand. So recovery from that. Let me give you an example. You may have somebody who has some capital, who travels across the border to Togo to buy handkerchiefs to come and sell in Ghana. While the Togolese border is closed, she squandered her capital. Not because she is not careful, but because she has to spend money on her needs. So she squandered her capital. Now, at this stage, if you happen to open the Togolese border, she can't go out there and do business. So she's literally indigent through no fault of hers, and through no fault of government either. It is something that has imposed a condition on us. It's the same with somebody who goes to China, but for electronic transactions, the person cannot fly to China for a long time. Aircraft are grounded. So capital being spent gradually, and it's all gone by the time the world is free. So now that person's ability to consume has become restricted. And people like that have dependence. People like that have dependence. Performing people who are seen in Ghana have dependence. So if 20 such people are out of business, then it means you are looking at 100, 200 people not being able to buy food regularly, not being able to take transportation, struggling to pay rent, being able to participate in the marketplace becomes a problem. Their kids' basic needs and all that. So
I'm going to interject here, not because, but yes, all on the back of COVID, right?
Yes.
And that is one point that people have made. It appears all the woes of our economy. People have said that we're already struggling in terms of our economy, even before.
But that's where I was going to land. But that's where I was going to land.
Here's the bit that is not peculiar. In other administrations, they've had to battle with HIPIC. The Coup administration had to battle with that. Yes. The John Dramani Mahama administration had to battle with, power, Dumso.
Yes.
I mean, how excruciating would that be on an economy? But they braved through all of these, whatever the metrics. And it appears you're riding on COVID to say that just because of COVID.
HIPIC was Ghana specific and other countries in the same situation as Ghana. It wasn't worldwide. Right. It wasn't a pandemic.
I'm merely saying that.
Yeah, I'm answering that. I'm answering that people are comparing. Like people are no, they are not like COVID. COVID brought the entire world to a halt. Because of COVID, cost of transporting goods from nations to other places, including cost of freight, have tripled and quadrupled in some instances. Because of COVID, major people in groups have lost access to their jobs. Because of COVID, like I explained, people who would otherwise...
Wasn't that a similar effect when we had Doomso? Where people had to shut down business, where people for hours on end, days even, couldn't get electricity
was not worldwide,
to run. I mean, it's not that not...
Doomso was not worldwide, so we were not importing inflation, rising prices. Doomso, we still could trade with the rest of the world. So it depended on how you manage yourself. If you could afford to buy a generator or something and buy fuel, your hotel would still run, but more expensive.
When you look at the inflation across the sub-region, we're not faring the best. I think apart from Guinea-Bissau with a 9-point-something, we had 15-point-something.
Yes, but you see, we need to...
We're probably the worst performer in the sub-region.
The Ghanaian economy is very interesting. We are doing better than we would have. And the rating agencies say that the strength of our economy pre-COVID, if you've read all their reports, is what carried us through COVID so that we didn't go too far down. And it is what is rebounding us faster than several countries in the world. You understand? But the reality is what I'm trying to explain to you. How does the small person recover their capital and become economic players and participants again? In the interim, there's a lag time for that recovery. Because even if government is supporting, like we are trying to do, through CAPBAs and loans to small sales sector and all that, those things are policy positions that filter through and trickle down. So you need lead time. You understand? So that lead time has given us a difficult time. In 2021, it was extremely difficult. And the president acknowledged it all over. In 2022, we stand a better chance of reflating the economy because worldwide, everybody is deciding that we have to live with COVID somehow.
So on the back of all of these things that you're telling me, if you had to give a scorecard to your own administration on a scale of 1 to 10 in this second term, what would be your score for the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo government?
In this second term, first year only, given the struggles we've had with COVID.
Up to now?
Yeah, up to now, but we just started the first quarter and we are waiting for our E-levy. Given the numbers in Parliament restricting our E-levy and all that, we are still keeping the ship together.
Your score would be what?
We would be fair at a 6.5.
6.5?
Yes.
So that's 65%?
Yes.
Your Congress is coming off, is it this year?
Every year we have an annual
So I'm talking about I'm talking about
the
where,
yes. No, we're starting the polling station, the base of the party, about 40,000.
You have mentioned, yes.
It's February 19th. And then we'll continue with coordinators, constituency executive, regional executive, and then the national executive will be in July. Yes. After that, the new national executive, will then set the dates for the parliamentary primaries and the presidential primaries.
Do you have a favorite among those who are going to be competing? I mean, it is clear. Let's not mince words.
I have
the vice president is going to be in there. The trades.
Oh, we know all of them.
You know all of them.
Yes, the vice president is definitely running. Mr. Chemartin is running.
Right. Maybe the agric minister just might give it a shot.
Zabuache Jako is running. Yogate is running, and it's obvious that the agric minister is also running. And then I wouldn't be surprised at all if Professor Apreku also runs.
Right.
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised.
Where are you throwing your weight? I mean, not necessarily. I mean, as a betting man, where would you throw your weight?
Throwing my weight behind who the party selects. Yes.
Whom do you think where the tide is heading now?
I have a private opinion, but where I sit now, I can't afford to make my private opinion public because I need to be there for all of us. we are heading into a period when it will be fiercely contested.
Right.
But we, as a party, hope it to be contested honorably.
Right.
However, fiercely, to be contested honorably. It's inevitable that it's contested, because if you have more than 4 or 5 people seeking a position, naturally they want to stake their claims.
Right.
So to be contested. So we need to be able to hold the line, maintain some honest brokership in the process.
Okay.
So I am not in a position where I can make my preferences public.
Give me this in a minute, if you can, and then we'll call it a conversation. We've said goodbye to the criminal libel law.
Yes.
But now we have journalists and all kinds of people being, picked up and all of that. Oliver Baka-Vomawo posts something, says it has nothing to do with an actual coup. This is someone who, where is your proof that he can execute even a coup? I mean, you must look at some such measures. You pick up Bobia and you pick up the Asepa boss and all of that. What is going on? Are we being muzzled?
In the beginning was the word. The word was with God. And the word was God.
Right.
Coup is a word associated with disruption. And it's a security-related matter. Our freedoms have imposed a responsibility to be fair to public safety and health on us, all of us. And so there are things that civil libel can deal with. If I feel maligned by an individual, I can go to the media commission, and I would prefer that most of us do that all the while. But when it comes to national security, then it's important that people stand by their
So if 10,000 Ghanaians get up today and say coup, and we suggest this, on the basis of what are you going to arrest all of them?
If 10,000 Ghanaians stand up, it means somebody is instigating them to do so. It's not a spontaneous.
The question is, will you arrest all 10,000?
I'm not in a position to determine that.
It doesn't.
Please, don't let's assume free speech. You undermine free speech with your utterances, and free speech cannot protect you. Or when what you wish for happens, free speech is gone. If there's a coup today, I can't be in the studio with you. If there's a coup today, Mr. Vomawo cannot.
No one wants that.
Nobody wants that. Why should we encourage talk about it? Because it leads to that. That's my point. If encouraging talk about it means that others will be encouraged by it, people who don't appreciate and understand what it implies. Not a lot of people appreciate and understand what a coup means. That when a coup happens, it means that all your freedoms of movement, association, speech are stripped off you, that you lose your dignity as a human being, you are instructed, that your life can be taken away from you, your life is valueless. We have had coups where people have been shot out of hand, people disappear from their homes.
Is your administration being so reactionary, especially because of what is happening in the sub-region? In simple terms, are you afraid?
I am not afraid.
No, I mean the administration. Are you afraid?
No, nobody is afraid, because we believe that our political systems are resilient enough. Okay, and that is why I believe that the security people must also act and have their actions tested. Because Mr. Vomawo will have his day in court. Right. You should go to court and say that, oh, I wrote it harmless.
So why didn't you just do that in the first place?
Yeah, but that
national security picks them up, macho style, and this and that.
It is a process.
And even moving away from a coup, people, you say publication of false news. Oh, the president's children jetted to the UK on a luxury jet. It is untrue. Rawlings took on the lives of Abdul Malik, Bako, and went through civil processes. Why aren't we doing that? Why are we picking people up?
Nanado was the one who helped repeal criminal libel. Yeah. We've had, and probably continue to have, one of the most freest and most vibrant media. Ghana. We are very, very vibrant. We speak our minds. We say anything we like anywhere on air. What I'm saying is that we must grow into an era of responsibility. Those who are doing out and out politics with their pronouncements sometimes must be responsible, because in an environment where there are those who feel that certain things by the administration can set them off in anger, and they are falsely told about happenings that literally did not happen, false happenings that are designed to set those feelings up in people, and then you need to answer for that. If the court process, if they go to court and the court says you were high-handed, then we all learn from it, and the administration will learn. But this is just one or two incidents in a very volatile environment where everybody says what they like. Everybody literally says what they like, and they get away with it. So please, you say coup, it has connotations, it has implications. It's not a mere saying. It's not just that. You have to answer for it. But in answering for it, It is the judicial system which sets the boundaries for all of us.
Right. And of course, we know that Oliver Barker-Vormawor is going to have his day in court
yes.
today. But thank you so much, Yao, for joining the conversation. Are you hopeful, just to wrap, give me a yes or no, are you hopeful the MPP will win in 2024?
I believe so. I believe that our policies really make change to the Ghanaian in terms of standard of living.
Right.
And it will vindicate us in 2024, especially after the E-levy comes into being. And we use it to target the investments that can build employment.
You started with more. Thank you so much, Yao Wapena Samoa, for joining the conversation. If I leave you, we'll go on this forever. But Yao Wapena Samoa, former member of Parliament for the Adenta constituency in the 7th Parliament, and of course now Director of Communications of the NPP. I look forward to the next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. All right. So coming up next, we're going to be taking a look at a vaccine mandate, the Ghana Medical Association, and what they are saying about that. All of that up next as we continue with our big stories on the AM show. Stay. Well, thank you for staying with us as we get into that second leg of our conversation. It has to do with a vaccine mandate, whether or not we need it, and even effecting it in these times. Adam Senanu is convener for the Coalition for Public Health and Justice. He joins the conversation. Dr. Titus Bayuo is General Secretary of the GMA, the Ghana Medical Association. And we have Professor Alfred Yawson, Head Community Health with the University of Ghana Medical School. Gentlemen, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
And the title is President, actually. We have
yes. In fact, the General Secretary, so we have Frank Sribo, and then there is you. Dr. Bay, you were saying President? Is that what you were saying?
No, I was the one saying President.
Okay. All right. Because I know you are General Secretary. So thanks for the clarity there. Now, hitting the nail right on the head, we have a bit of a tricky situation. In other countries, vaccine mandates are being enforced. Let me start with you, Edem. In our context, we don't have a vaccine mandate per se, but there is some enforcement in terms of some public sector workers, even including medical workers or health sector workers. Why are you against that?
Well, first of all, there are the legal processes that ought to be followed if you want to do vaccine mandates. We have a peculiar situation where we've had some institutions put out instructions compelling their members to get vaccinated or restricting the movement of Ghanaians in and out of their facilities. We think that if you want to do that, follow the right processes. The president has not put in place, and it's the president who has the capacity to restrict the movement of Ghanaians. That hasn't happened. There's no executive instrument. The Minister for Health has a right to pass an EI supporting a vaccine mandate. That also hasn't happened. Now, the major issue is, especially, and it's interesting, it's public health practitioners, especially, who've been really upset about the infringement on their rights to choose whether they want to be vaccinated or not, and their rights to work, because sometimes their rights to work has been impinged on, and then the restrictions on their movement. And many people are not too excited about some of these new vaccines and the implications they have. And so it is a current context. And so in principle, no objections to vaccinations and vaccines in general. We just think that we should allow this to still be a choice of the individual. And the constituency that is most bothered about this are the health practitioners who've been insisting that we need to do something about this.
Right, and I think that feeds into exactly what the GMA in its recent release dated the 10th put out. Dr. Bayuo, so why do you feel that it is not time yet for us to have a vaccine mandate? We have the Public Health Act, and it spells categorically what we can and cannot do. Why not now?
All right, thank you very much. From the point of view of the GMA, we do not think that
the making it compulsory or mandatory is the way to go. It may be counterproductive now. I think we want to emphasize on the fact that the vaccines are good. We encourage everybody to take the vaccines. They will be helpful. They are a game changer in this battle. But we want government not to make this mandatory at this moment. In terms of the law, they may have the right to do so, but we think it will be counterproductive. We've had a very roller coaster vaccine history as far as this COVID-19 vaccination is concerned. At some point, hesitancy was very high, and we did a campaign, and we brought down the hesitancy. Unfortunately, when we were willing to get these vaccines, we did not have them available in the country. At that point, the cases go down, we have the vaccines, and people are not willing to take them. We appreciate why government may want to do the mandatory vaccination so that people take it up. But we think it's not the best way to go now. It will just increase more hesitancy and will let people do unscrupulous things to evade the system. People are even procuring the cards to show that they've been vaccinated when they've not been vaccinated. And that has never helped us. As a country, we've had very successful vaccination campaigns, and none of these was mandatory. Our children are vaccinated in schools. We do not complain, but it's not mandatory. And so we would urge that let's continue the education. Let's get everybody vaccinated. But the attempt at making it mandatory, it's not the best way to go.
Aren't you reaching for both ends of the stick? In one breath, you say it is a good thing. In fact, per your statement, you state that the vaccines are efficacious and all of that. And in another breath, you are saying we shouldn't have a vaccine mandate. Is that not the way we can actually have everybody on board taking shots of these vaccines? I mean, is this not a bit contrary?
No, it isn't contrary at all. Where the vaccines are good, the GMA is not questioning the efficacy of the vaccines. We have seen that they are efficacious. Our data shows that these vaccines are useful. But mandatory vaccination will be counterproductive. If people have concerns, let's address those concerns. But making it mandatory means that people are going to be forced to take the jab. We all know our society. The very fact that something is compulsory means that somebody is willing to defy it. People will do whatever they can take to defy what is mandatory. Let the people see how good it is. Let them understand how useful it is. Let them voluntarily opt to have it. And we think that's the way to go. Like I mentioned, the Ministry of Health itself admits that when they brought this threat of mandatory vaccination, people were procuring our vaccine cards without taking the vaccination.
We seem to have a bit of a situation with Dr. Bayo, General Secretary of the GMA. We'll get him back, but let me quickly get to Professor Yorson. Do you side with the two earlier speakers on this bit of a vaccine mandate? Before you come in with your response, Dr. Bayo, can you hear me? If you're back, can you hear me, Dr. Bayo? All right. So I'll proceed with you, Professor Yorson, until we can get Dr. Bayo back. Do you subscribe to what they are suggesting? I mean, there's been a pushback in certain quarters. The most recent, the bit about Canada and the United States, that border and truck drivers for days on end, holding the economy to ransom on the back of a vaccine mandate. Do you subscribe to their thoughts that it could have more of a negative effect than a positive one?
Thank you for having us. I would like to put everything in perspective and in context. When you are dealing with pandemics and the situation is always fluid and dynamic, so you take decisions as you go along. And then looking at what happened December to January, February 2021, that is coming from 2020. And then looking at the trajectory of how the pandemic was behaving in the later part of 2021, getting into 2022. It was important for government in trying to manage the situation to put in stringent measures to ensure that we don't get into a severer fourth wave. So some of these measures were proposed, the mandatory vaccination, especially for critical workers and people at the front line. However, fortunately, as a country, we've seen that the expectations have not been what we were expecting, let me put it that way. And fortunately, the Omicron, even though has been very infectious, the rate of hospitalization, the rate of mortalities and all that are quite low. And currently the health system is quite capable of dealing and handling it. That is where I tend to side with my colleagues both, that you make rules and take measures depending on the situation. Now that we are easing, and I also support that, yes, it's not like somebody has won, somebody has lost. No, government wanted to do this to safeguard the safety and protect the citizenry. Now that things have changed, we can insist that, yes, we really do not need the mandate, but we will continue to encourage people to take the vaccine. Primary vaccination is key. It's not that vaccination is not important. As Dr. Bayo said, it is important. Evidence shows vaccination, and we cannot run away from that. It is making it mandatory and the legal implications, especially comparing it to the situation we have now, when we are not in very critical circumstance and the health system is capable of managing it. I think we can go the way we are going now, encourage more health workers to get vaccinated, primary vaccination, and those who are inclined to take the boosters to have them. That is what I will also support. That it shouldn't be a win or lose situation. We make rules and we make a mandate depending on how the situation is. Now, if the situation so demands that we can go with encouraging people voluntarily to take the vaccine whilst we continue the public education and making sure people have access when they need to, I think that will be the way to.
Prof, why this, again, why this effort? Because there are many countries that have vaccine mandates, just like we are getting taught. I mean, for us public sector workers and some of that, in Austria, in Ecuador, in Germany, in Indonesia, in Micronesia, it is all persons, by the way. In so many countries, Turkmenistan, Canada, Costa Rica, Croatia, we were talking about the Canadian situation. It is not new, and it is all aimed at safeguarding the population. Mind you, and you are fully aware, we're not in the best of places when it comes to getting the vaccines proper. Now we are fortunate to have booster shots and all of that. Why not maximize them in terms of getting everybody to compulsorily have the vaccine shot? I mean, take herd immunity out. Isn't that the safest way to go?
That should be, but we need to put it in perspective and see the consequences that may come as a result of this. As Dr. Taito said, we know our society, even when things are legal and mandatory, people go out flattening. And at the end of the day, you may have negative consequences. So we need to consider our situation. We can also talk about countries like the UK, where a lot of the restrictions are being relaxed. So we will not be alone in this. We have others who are also easing and not going the way others have gone. So we need to consider our peculiar situation, see where the pandemic currently is, how many cases we are getting severe, critically ill, and mortality. Compare with the consequences that may result. You don't already have a number or the adequate numbers of health workers to take care of the number of patients we see. And if we go by this mandate, helpful to get all health workers immunized. However, there should be a way where we can engage and that let people who really have reasons, medical and other reasons not to be vaccinated, can readily come forward and explain this to health administrators, health authorities in their facilities without necessarily cutting them out from providing the functions they need to provide. Same way with other frontline workers who are in this category. So as I said, we need to look at the situation and make rules adequately to safeguard the situation. We do not have to follow what others are doing because others are doing. We need to consider our situation. And I am confident that where we are now, the health system can manage the situation if we are able to continue educating the public, to continue to take the safety measures that have been put in. Mind you, vaccine is not the only measure we are using to fight this pandemic. So all the other measures are still important to be highlighted. And therefore, we need to encourage more people, especially with the primary vaccination, get as many people vaccinated as possible. But with the legal issues and all that coming in, I spoke on your station a few months ago and was quite in support of the mandatory vaccination. My position hasn't changed. It has now because of the situation we find ourselves. We don't have to use a sledgehammer to kill a fly when we don't need to, when we can use other measures. So that is why, and the point I'm coming from. This
right. Right. Let me bring in Adam once more. So where we find ourselves now, I mean, health workers, for example, are being required to take the vaccine shots. And there, too, there's been a bit of conflict. Legally speaking, what would be the approach, I mean, from your end, from your organization, if the mandate is rolled out, or at least as it is, or it's tightened even further? What do you think the way forward is in that context?
Well, let me start off by saying that we are in very good company, and it's not very useful belaboring points that have already been dealt with. And both Dr. Titus Bayo and Professor Yosen have said that the context matters. And I think we all agree with that. It's an iterative process where at each point, the context determines what set of tools you use to address the issue. And I'm excited to hear them all align with that. That's the way to go. So the first thing is always the context. There are also the ethical considerations, right, from the WHO level, where it's always better to do education, let people arrive at the point where in their minds they understand that I have to do this because it is beneficial to myself. So the ethical considerations is another leg of this whole discussion. To the specific issue of what we will do. I mean, this morning, our lawyers are probably laying before court to try and place the injunction. I'm quite sure that if the GHS responds appropriately, so there are about 14 institutions that have released instructions either restricting movement or insisting that you can't work or enter our space if not being vaccinated. We want these institutions to reconsider that. Actually, if the GHS reconsiders it, it probably will take care of all of this. And let's allow the education to continue. Vaccination is important. Let vaccinations continue, but allow the individuals to take these decisions based on an understanding of the benefits that will accrue to them or otherwise.
Dr. Bayo, are you with us now? I mean...
yeah, I can hear you.
Right. You were making a point right before your train of thought was truncated. If you'd like to wrap up on that before I go to the next question.
No, I think it's been amplified by Prof, which is that we think that people should be given the choice. And we have proven with very successful vaccination campaigns in this country for our children, for polio, for all the others.
We appear to have lost Dr. Bayo once more. Right.
That was not that. So the other, yeah.
Go on, Doc. Go on, Dr. Bayo.
Yeah,
go on.
So I was saying the use of the other measures in this fight, we think these are helpful, and the vaccine should not be mandatory. Regional directors of the Ghana Health Service that have instituted virtually warnings asking that health workers who are not vaccinated should not report to work. And if they do not report to work, they are not validated, which means they are not going to be paid and they are being laid off technically. This is going to be counterproductive at this stage of this fight. And we think that the government has to withdraw that directive and then consider the suggestions we are making. Let's get the people to believe in the vaccine. Let's get everybody to volunteer to take it. but let's not make it mandatory at this moment.
Okay.
In context, it's not necessary.
Right. Let me just acknowledge, Dr. Bayo, I have a final top-up for you on that very point. But let me acknowledge that we've been joined by Professor John Japong, Vice-Chancellor for the University for Health and Allied Sciences, who also has a different take on this matter. But Prof, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Just hold your horses for me. Let me clarify this with Dr. Bayo. So you talk about this bit about we've not got there yet. Look at the circumstances. We've had so many waves of COVID-19. Our economy is feeling the effect. Our education has felt the effect and still is. And so many things, business and all of that. When are we going to get to the point, do you feel, when we would have the reason to have a mandate? When?
Okay, so there are specific thresholds laid down in the Public Health Act. I didn't want to go the legal way, but for us to compel everybody in the nation to line up and take a jab mandatorily to bring people out and give them a jab, the disease must be of a certain significance. It must be so terrible, which is what Prof was putting in context, that how many people are we getting on admission now? How many people are critically ill now? What is the situation? Have we assessed the burden of the disease in our society now? Currently, what is our case load? So have we reached that threshold where we think this disease is causing such a significant mortality and morbidity that we must compel everybody? That threshold must be met. The other threshold that must be met, which I don't really want to go into, we must have clear evidence that what we are providing is a solution and is the ultimate solution. The vaccine is helpful, but we all know that only the vaccine cannot do this battle for us. The fact that somebody gets the vaccine does not mean the person will not get the infection. It can protect them from dying from it, from getting critically ill. So we think it's a double-headed approach. Let me say multifaceted that we are using. And we should use all the facets and not emphasize only on the vaccine. We believe in the efficacy of the vaccine, but we think that the exigencies that will warrant a mass vaccination compulsory, everybody being brought up and given a jab, has not been met yet.
Right.
Thankfully, our system is coping better now. Most people walking around in the community have been exposed already, and some have even developed some sort of immunity to it. We need a lot of research to know what is the community prevalence of this condition. And then I would also emphasize on the fact that from the point of view of our infectious disease experts and vaccinologists, we have had very successful campaigns. Some of them, 98% uptake rate of vaccination, 90% uptake rate of vaccination, and none of...
Right. Okay, so we get the thrust of what you're saying. Let me bring in Prof. Japong now. You've heard what your contemporaries are saying, from Edem Senano of the coalition to, Professor Yorsin and Dr. Bayo of the Ghana Medical Association. But you disagree. Why?
Well, thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share my opinion on this. Well, I must say I'm a member of the Ghana Medical Association. So ordinarily, when the Ghana Medical Association issues a statement on our behalf, I shouldn't be saying anything to contest it. But I feel that we need to look at the whole issue carefully. Dr. Bayo and Professor Losman enumerated issues relating to when you give a vaccine mandate as far as the public health law is concerned. That is very true. However, I think we are missing one component of it. The fact that a couple of months ago, we were in such a big crisis that we're all thinking of having a vaccine mandate should not make us, and the fact that now the disease burden appears to have gone low does not necessarily mean that we should take our eyes off the ball. Because you see, if you follow the epidemiology of this pandemic, and again, let's bear in mind that it's a pandemic, and it's not just a localized infection. We should not take our eyes off the ball. The fact that the disease burden has gone down now, this is even the time for us to wrap up our vaccinations to achieve the so-called herd immunity that everybody has been talking about. Yes, a vaccine mandate has not been issued by law, and for which reason nobody can implement a vaccine mandate. But I think that to say that because the burden of disease has gone down now, considerations of a vaccine mandate to completely go out, for me, is completely non-epidemiological.
Right. Interesting perspective. Professor Yawson, I'll give you 30 seconds. That will be the final word for this conversation. How do you react to that statement from Professor Japong?
No, I believe that we can go on and still encourage people to vaccinate, especially the primary vaccination.
Right.
It is not that we are going to take our eyes off the ball. We still should ramp up the vaccination, but the legal component and others that may rather inhibit people who otherwise would have been vaccinated, we need to consider it carefully and still continue all the measures that we have used so far to get people to vaccinate and continue on that tangent. We don't need to unnecessarily rock the boat when we have passed through the turbulent times and now we are in a more stable time. We need to use all the measures at our disposal.
That is precisely my problem. We say we have gone through the turbulent
as many
time.
people
as
possible. Not just the mandate. We know laws in Ghana which are flouted. NHIS is mandatory, but people are not having NHIS. So the fact that we push out the mandate, we need to ensure that this is considered and implemented.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Professor Yawson, Professor Japong, Dr. Begio, and Edem Senano, thank you for sharing your thoughts on this all-important matter. The conversation continues, of course, as we still grapple with this mandate. But did you know that the income of a young entrepreneur from some selected businesses is exempt from tax for 5 years? Any young entrepreneur engaged in manufacturing, information and communications, technology, agro-processing, energy production, waste processing, tourism and creative arts, horticulture and medicinal plants does not need to pay any income tax on these activities for their first 5 years of operation. Now, a young entrepreneur engaged in business that enjoys an initial 5-year concession benefits from different tax rates for an additional 5 years. So here's the breakdown. Accra and Tema, 15%. Other regional capitals outside the 3 northern regions, 12.5%. Outside other regional capitals, 10%. And the 3 northern regions, 5%. If you need further clarity, reach out to the GRA office, the Ghana Revenue Authority, and they will give you the information you need. My name is Benjamin Akako. Thank you for joining me on the AM show today. Let's do it again, same time tomorrow. The news is up at 10 and at noon. Happy Valentine's Day.